about some people that passed away, and we ask ourselves, does their legacy mean anything to us, even as we move on? The panel will be giving us what their highlights and lowlights were of 2023, but also will focus on about 4 topics to spend some time there in the region, in the country, but also globally, what will happen to us. Let me get to the panel. On my extreme left, he is a flight captain, Captain Francis Babu, a senior citizen. Good evening, sir, and happy holidays.
Good evening, and I congratulate everybody who went through the Christmas. I hope they had a good time. Of course, I send my my greetings to those who are abroad, who are our people. I'm told this television is watched by people in other countries. I hope they are also fine. I send peace to everybody in this country. And I hope they will have a very nice new year coming up. And I hope the new year will be more fruitful than what this has been.
Thank you very much. Next to him, he's no stranger to the airwaves of UBC here, Counsel Edgar Tavaro, who is an advocate but also a political analyst. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Timothy, and good evening, our viewers. It's a pleasure being here again, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone out there. Since we are reviewing the year, I'll be talking a bit about tea and the fall of the crash of the tea sector in Uganda. I happen to come from Toro, one of the biggest tea growing areas in Africa, and we're taking a beating, terrible beating from the fall of tea prices at the auction center in Mombasa.
And I hope we can couple that with the region, especially areas that I'm interested in picking your mind on there.
Pleasure.
Made an appearance here on the show, Madam Sarah Kajingo, Vice Chairperson of the Private Sector Foundation. Good evening, Madam, and happy holidays.
Good evening, Timothy. Happy holidays. I wish everyone watching us a joyous festive season and a bountiful new year. Thank you for having me.
Also, another maiden appearance on Behind the Headlines, Alex Waiswa Mufumbiro, the Deputy Spokesperson of the National Unity Platform. Good evening, sir, and it's good to have you.
Good evening, Timothy. It's a pleasure being hosted here on UBC on this very program, and very humbling to be with this panel. But most importantly, as I said, being on this panel with the Honorable Senior Lecturer Edgar Tavaro is more humbling to my career.
And that's very good. I'm glad both of you are here. We'll ask the
I radicalized him.
He is the one who taught me all the small, little, or too much law that I know. That gentleman.
So you wasn't
in terms of constitutionalism.
Okay.
Both the history and the law.
Thank you very much. Professor Sarah Sali, Dean at the School of Women and Gender Affairs. Happy holidays, and it's good to have you as usual.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Timothy, and good evening, viewers. I'm very happy to be here, and I want to thank God that He has taken you all through the festive season. I know we are yet to face the new year, and I pray that everyone goes through it all safely. And we wish you all a happy 2024.
And that's where we'll begin. You can join us on our YouTube channel. Let us know what you think. Drop your comment there. We'll be responding to some of the messages there. Or go to our X platform, drop your comment, hashtag UBC Behind the Headlines. Let us know what you think. I'll be reviewing some of those before the hour splits there, and we'll be getting to the second hour there. Or the number 0709 60 25 92. We'll be getting into some of your messages there. Let us know what you think. What was your biggest story? What is the biggest headline you have seen this year? But also the positives and the negatives and areas we can improve as a country moving forward. Professor, fortunately, you have been here from Jan to December. You saw a peaceful transition of power from Charles that was here to me who was coming. When you look at this year, 2023, in the lenses of a professor but also as a Ugandan, what are your highlights, what are your lowlights in terms of headlines?
Wow. Yeah, thank you very much. The year has been very dramatic. But what are my highlights? One, I think, was the kind of citizenship engagement we saw. You know, normally we see social media being used for so many other things. But this time, it was used to actually raise awareness about pertinent issues affecting the country for example, with regard to potholes, with regard to issues within even the NGO or CSO sector. And I thought that was a different way of engaging using social media. The other thing which was a key highlight for me was the issue of land and the land crisis. I know it was narrowed down to the issue of the Balalo, but I think every time you pick the newspaper, there's a land crisis somewhere. So I think that is a highlight which we should focus on, which we should ask why. And really this is happening because resources are shrinking, the population is increasing, what was formerly a traditional asset is becoming an economic commodity. So how do we transition into this different phase of understanding and relating economically around the land? The other issue which was a very good highlight for me, and this happened throughout the year, was the focus on boosting economic growth for this country. I know most times when people talk about economics, it's all doom and gloom. But the issue now with the economics, you see there is a concerted effort to growing the economy of this country. Whether we are discussing locally in terms of agro-industrialization, or we are talking PDM, or we are talking about the G25, I think Coffee Summit, and the trip to Russia, or we are talking about UNOC and to see how do we get better deals with regard to oil. So there is this concerted effort on trying to rein in the economy, to try and get better dividends. It's like we have suddenly realized that we can never be free until we are economically free. And for me, that was the biggest highlight. And it is still going on, and I think if we continue like that with the intentionality that the government has, I think we are on a proper trajectory. So largely that, citizenship engagement, issues around land and land crisis, which are also economic in nature, but also the concerted efforts of the government to expand our resource envelope by either cutting off where we were wasting in terms of UNOC and cutting away middlemen, or actually growing our economy locally and internationally in terms of the G25 Coffee Summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Alex, your headlines and lowlights in this year of 2023.
Of course, there were so many things in 2023. If you look at the security part of it, what happened in Somalia, we lost over 54 on count. We had the murders and fires in Kasese. You had the assassination of over 3 persons in cold blood, extrajudicial killing that has continued. It is an overlap of 2022. You have had the terrifying stories of those that have been abducted, the total abuse of security forces of the rule of law in terms of modus of arrest, but even prevailing over a prison at hand in character of the way they are handled and the way they are treated. There has also been, in this very year, if you look at the social challenges of the people, they have continued. The debt ceiling is quite unacceptable. You had the other time, they were trying to discuss the interest of the loans that people have been getting, especially the common people. They have already been affected. The intervention of PDM has not been of effect. If you look at the bombs that have been going off, of course, remembering how they came about, these bombs came after the historical political might exposure of the beloved generational vision bearer, His Excellency Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, having a tour around. Then all of a sudden we had the bombs later being stopped and the bombs also stopping to go off. You have had...
Is that factual?
Well, you are a journalist and a senior one at that. You can backtrace my statements, but it did happen and you are aware of that. So I cannot say it is factual. You can backtrace my facts. If you look at the constitutionalism, has also the doctrine of separation of powers. It has been hugely again in the definition of the land retired Principal Judge James Ogola when he spoke about the mafias raping the temple after Dr. Kizza Besigye had been released. This time round, you saw directives coming from the head of the executive to the judiciary in terms of many aspects. Intervention of land, where there are challenges. Our senior land professor Sally here has talked about the Balalo question. It has overlapped. If you look at it only from the northern region, but even in other places, looking at the story of the murder of Sobi, I was talking about the extrajudicial killings that have been happening. So you have had a year that has been very, very, very fatigued, and the economy has hugely deteriorated from the common person. A particular grouping of people have encroached on the national cake, and they are running away with it, mindless of whatever is happening. And the facts will speak for themselves. You know that Uganda was faced with the most historical scandal, that is the Mabati scandal, running from the vice president to honorable members of parliament. So we have had quite a challenge as a country in terms of governance, allowing political parties have free play. There have been many instances where activities of other political parties, especially the National Unity Platform, have been stifled by the system. You are aware that even opening our own offices was a tug of war. But thanks to God, we are still alive. And yes, it's humbling to be with you this evening.
Any positives? Any positives in 2023?
They opened the party headquarters.
You see, all those would be very, very meritorious things for me to come and speak about. But we have challenges that amidst all that, we have now confirmed 18 persons by even government missing up to now. So they overlap the positivity that would have arisen at any one time.
So Islamic banking is not a positive. The bid for Africa is not a positive. When we talk about cricket cranes qualifying for T20 is not a positive.
Well, if you went
Your
to
offices are not a positive.
if you went to, I said that the positives are overlapped by the fatigue of the year, especially if I give you the balance of probabilities with missing persons and their families vis-a-vis something else that you're talking about as AFCON. But even if I do a deeper analysis to what would have been a point of analysis, a point of excitement to me over that news, I look at the management of the affairs of where we have got an opportunity to host certain things. You've had the lead, General Museveni, the other day when he was addressing the press, he clearly stated that he believes Nachivugo is at the standard of hosting AFCON. You look at the road infrastructure that we have, because there are many attributes that you're supposed to do. So the availability, the winning of these awards vis-a-vis what our neighbors gain from organizing these events and what we gain as a country and as a people, to us, we know that this is another, it's going to be another scandal opportunity for those around the oligarch to run away with billions of money, but not the people that are supposed to benefit from it. So our worry, given the historical background of what we have seen, you know Chogam, you know how much we lost in Chogam, you know Afro-Arab. The reason you don't have Shimon is because of Chogam.
Okay. Let me bring in Madam Sarah. Really a grey cloud painted by Alexia, but coming to you, when you look at this year, what were your headlines and your low or high moments in this year of 2023 as a country?
Thank you, Timothy. From the Private Sector Foundation, where I sit and which I'm privileged to lead as Vice Chair with my colleague Humphrey Nzeya and Chair, the year has been a very exciting one. We have partnered with government on a number of business summits. As we all know, government has, for over the last so many years, since 2013, stimulated production of commodities, of maize, of coffee. So it made sense that we needed to penetrate regional, continental, and international markets for those who are engaged in adding value, so that our products can get there. So in August, we had a very, very good summit, an international coffee summit, where we had 25 countries who produce coffee in Africa convene in Uganda, and they penned their signature onto what we called the Kampala Declaration, where, among others, these 25 countries will be leading the agenda for our citizens, and therefore our countries, to eventually stop trading in coffee as a raw material for clear reasons that will lose value and therefore jobs. And it will also inform the African Union agenda on priority agricultural commodities. We had another summit with the South African businesses here, again in partnership with the Ugandan government. We have had one with Algeria. So it's been an exciting year. And on sports tourism, again in partnership with the tourism associations, we just hosted about 2 weeks ago the inaugural Women Birding conference in Uganda. And our intention is to position Uganda as a top birding destination. So it was a nice thing to see everybody here from around the world saying our country is hospitable, is the friendliest. And again, of course, AFCON, we will be hosting AFCON in 2027. Very exciting opportunities for the Ugandan, the ordinary Ugandan. When we have all those people coming into our country, we get to sell our products. The other one was the piece with Obsinga Warenzururu, where I had an opportunity to contribute as the head of the secretariat. So again, it's a good thing. Whatever contestations happen in Uganda, in our country, it's important that we all coalesce around national interests, so that we have a low, what we used to call in mathematics the LCM, a lowest common multiple, below which we must never fall. So when we have such high contestations, but there is light at the tunnel, it's a very, very good thing. So for me, that one was a very big high. On a low note, again, on integration, because we've been, as private sector and the business community, we work closely with government to advance integration. But we had some of our products being blocked by Kenya, by South Sudan, and we are not a belligerent team. We believe in engagement. Fortunately, South Sudan, we are able to resolve that. Kenya, we haven't yet, but which also informed the decision to really rigorously look for markets elsewhere, because, and again also in the long term, we have to rationalize what we produce, our industrialization policies, because even if Kenya were to open up in the short term to all our products, which they should, because I mean we have a common market under the EAC, which they all ratified, the countries of the EAC, and so it does not make sense to get into protectionism when for so many years, I remember when we were young, we consumed the Kimbo, we consumed the Cowboy from Kenya, and so many other products, Blue Band. The balance of trade was tilted to the advantage of the rest of Kenya and other countries. So, yes, I remember. We used to milk, sometimes powdered milk, those very bad days. So it does not make sense to engage in protectionism, but the long-term thing to do is because we shall saturate this market of over 300 million people, which makes big sense for us to work together as East African countries to penetrate other markets, work with one voice, rationalize our industrial policies. The other high was that for the first time ever, Uganda is approaching insecurity in East DR Congo economically. So you saw roads being constructed in the business sector. We call them trade and security roads. They will continue to enable Ugandans sell our products to the DR Congo, but also enable the two countries to ensure peace and security for the East African peoples. But as you know, trade is a mutual arrangement. It's not just take. So it's a good thing that East African countries are increasingly working together, and that the private sector of Uganda is now woke to adding value. Of course, the sectors are many: manufacturing, agriculture and agribusiness, tourism, logistics. They're all interlinked. So we look forward to the opportunities that 2024 has for us. Thank you.
And I'm grateful you spoke about that, because I know as PSFU, you also had something in Goma this year.
Yes.
But let's come to the economy. Small and medium enterprises. This Christmas season, some people left the eastern part of the country to go and buy things in Kenya because the prices were lower. Inflation has come down to 2.9%. On the economic sense, business is down in Chukubo, whatever. How do you see that? How has it been this 2023 as PSFU for both small and medium enterprises?
Of course, you know, our economy was hit by the disruptions of COVID and all those other natural disruptions, floods, locusts. So, but we see that we are recovering again with support of government. For example, this year, a project called GROW, which we are co-implementing with the Ministry of Gender, has been rolled out. It's funded by the World Bank to again scale women-owned businesses. So as opposed to several years ago where women enterprises were not given due regard, we have, of course, business growth in the countries. Our business as private sector foundation, we've been engaging government, Revenue Authority, for example, to be an enabler to handhold businesses as opposed to cutthroat enforcement of immediate closures. So the year ended on a high, in a sense that Revenue Authority has now changed its focus, its strategic focus, to enabling businesses. On our part as PSFU, we've been partnering with several valued partners, with MasterCard Foundation, on adding value to, for example, we have cumulatively created 416,000 dignified jobs, because it's also important that work is fulfilling for young people, but also to enable SMEs acquire certification, much needed certification from the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, because without standards you cannot penetrate any market, not regional. So over 550 products for SMEs, that is a big one. Of course, we still have challenges related to patient capital. The cost of capital in Uganda is very, very high. But recently, the Bankers Association communicated that actually, if you have a loan in a bank and you choose to pay it off, you don't have to incur any penalties, which was a plus for us as a business community. But also now, as private sector foundation, we have come up with a catalytic fund, which we shall have our business community access at a very, very affordable rate. So we are alerting the banks that it's not business as usual. 2024 has very, very big things for the businessman in Kampala City Traders Association, or a member of the Uganda Women entrepreneurs association who has, their small business that requires capital.
And I'm glad you said that, because the penalty from the banks was about 13%. But let me get to Edgar. Council, this year for you, it's really, I need to look at it from the regional perspective. They became 8 East African countries. There has been insecurity. Kasese, recently Kamwenge. We're also talking about Sudan. Hamdad was here today meeting the president in Rakitura. When you look at our regional politics, will it spill over into the country if you look at it from the perspective of 2023 and also previewing what 2024 could look like?
I'm glad you started on the note of the Galo Hamdat. The Sudanese fora on Twitter is breaking. There was word that Hamdat had passed on in July. Armed forces, and he had not been seen in public. Then earlier in the day, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of release that they had been in touch with Djibouti, where Hamdat and Burhan were supposed to be meeting tomorrow, and Hamdat had cancelled, and his team was expressing their apologies for not being able to attend. So this evening, the first pictures come from UBC itself, asking UBC itself posting that Hamdat had knowing that I worked here at some point in my life as a UBC managing director, my phone is you can't believe, I have like 800 messages from groups in Khartoum. Well, just to declare my interest, I happen to be a special envoy for one of the principals in Khartoum, and the principal certainly isn't Hamdat. Now, there is a feeling amongst the intelligentsia in East Africa that the East African integration process is being rushed and not strategically being undertaken, that it should have grown organically, that the inclusion of the other states outside the traditional, what I would say the Anglophone states, that is the former British East Africa, it was rushed, and that the other states did not meet even the minimum conditions for admission into the East African community. So as a result of the rushed process, we are having birth pranks of the rushed process. One of them being the open hostility between two neighbors, the two neighbors, the very big country, and the country I'll refer to as the elephant in the room, because I don't want to cause any more diplomatic skirmishes between our countries. And you have a president on a campaign trail and makes reference to his counterpart in heading that elephant, that likening him to some of the worst human beings that have existed in human history, and also making a declaration of war. Yesterday, or the day before yesterday, there was a rebel attack on Burundi where 20 people died, and fingers are obviously being pointed in certain directions. This month alone, the last 1 week and a half, we've had 2 rebel so-called terrorist attacks in the place where I come from, Toro, Kamwenge, and the number of people have passed. Earlier in the day today, we got information that the commander of that cluster had been put out of action. UPDF continues to enjoy cordial relations with the DRC, and the Operation Shuja is going on. It's ongoing, and surgical operations have been carried out. Incidentally,
so who left on the 8th of December?
No, I'm coming. I'll explain the dynamics. Incidentally, ADF and the Mai Mai hold the biggest territory in eastern DRC. The M23, it is very small, it's like a sub-county in Uganda. But ADF and the Mai Mai Those hold the biggest territories. And unfortunately for us, Uganda, our geographical operation is limited in Operation Soldier. There are other supply routes that are further beyond Ituri in the provinces they call Utwele and Batwele, very close to Central African Republic, where they receive logistical supplies. So I'm hoping in the new year, our operation can be, the scope and geographical reach can be widened into the DRC. But we continue to enjoy close relations between the two sitting heads of state. But there seems to be a lot of mistrust amongst the DRC citizens as far as Uganda is concerned. I'm not talking of the eastern DRC, I'm talking of the western side in Kinshasa. And I wish to appeal to persons like Sarah. Sarah doesn't like to talk much about herself, which is really so much about her upbringing, because I've known her from the time we were teenagers. She was part of the verification team that went in the mountains to establish the Obsingabwe and Zururu issues. She went up there in the mountains, and I think some of the reports, some of the actions arise from that verification exercise, and I thank you for it. So using your experience and people who think like us, I would appeal to the government of Uganda that if we are to have deepened, smoothened, and widened, as well as sustainable relations with the people in the DRC, Uganda has one, to atone. Two, you remember when President Museveni went for the funeral of Garang, he had to undergo some rituals, jumping a white bull and what have you. So, because, there are these libations and, rituals that communities have for purposes of expunging some, bad omen and what have you. There are things that we did not do right in the DRC in our previous campaigns there. So it's incumbent upon our leadership to reach out, not just the leadership, but the populace of the DRC, and reconcile with the population there. Because there's deep-seated, in some cases, open hatred and resentment, but also mistrust with the Ugandans. Then DRC fell out with Kenya. They recalled the ambassador. They also recalled the ambassador, who was previously Jean Masala, to Arusha. DRC's ambassador to accredited envoy to East African community. He was recalled. Reason being, they accepted M23 to go to Nairobi and make a declaration of war. And on top of that, they chose a leader called Cornel Nanga. Cornel Nanga is the immediate former head
of the
Electoral Commission of DRC. Nanga is a sanctioned person by the United States government. Now, the United States previously, up to that point, considered Kenya a strategic ally. So the message that was put out on the X handle of the U.S. Embassy in Kinshasa was very clear, hitting at the Kenyan government. Now, the Kenyan government, in its knee-jerk reaction, gave a statement that was neither here nor there. Their minister and spokesperson, Minister for Information spokesperson, had called for a press conference on Sunday at 11 a.m. About 40 minutes before the press conference, they called it off. So it escalated and ambassadors were recalled. But more importantly for the region, South African, the Kinshasa government asked the East African regional forces to leave. And that is the group that left, that the UPDF left, that had been deployed in the southern part of North Kivu, Bunagana, Masisi, Goma areas.
So those are the 5,000 peacekeepers?
Yes, 5. So the peacekeepers. But instead, what has happened, DRC has entered bilateral agreements with Burundi to take over South Kivu and parts of North Kivu. They've also entered, rather under SADC, Windhoek declaration that authorized the heads of state to send a military expedition into the DRC. And South African Defense Forces is taking the lead. The last I checked for last week, they were undergoing battle readiness training in Palaborwa, in the northern, in Mpumalanga, in Limpopo province, so as to deploy in the DRC. Tanzania, if you recall, during the the conclave discussions chaired by Uhuru when he was exiting as president, all the heads of state of the region were in attendance. But consistently, Tanzania absented itself, sending a low-level delegation. It turns out that Tanzania has voted with SADC in Windhoek to deploy in the eastern DRC. So, for DRC is going to be a pain, and I don't rule out further escalation of hostilities. Sudan, especially Khartoum, it went up in flames in April. Things happened pretty quick. No prediction, no person in their minds would have imagined a Sudan that we have for now. Yes, there were tensions leading to breakup of the truce that they were supposed to enter in. There were negotiations to enter a transition period to hand over to an elected government. Now, the South Sudan Armed Forces and the Forces for Freedom and Change were uncomfortable admitting the militias of Dagalo, RSF, integrating them in the National Army. That was the only sticking issue that failed the peace process, and Sudan went up in flames, and now we are dealing with the consequences.
Thank you very much, Council. Let me come to Captain Francis Babu. Your year, 2023, any highlights, any lowlights when you look at it, especially you and I have been here, we have come from multi-party politics to whatever debacle has happened in this country. What has been the headline that has really put a positive on it, and what has really made it really for you to rethink this country needs help in a certain direction?
Thank you very much. Please allow me not to be Reuters. I don't like to be media. Let us speak as Africans for a change. And I think Mbeki said it very well. I am an African. Let's talk about Africa. Let's talk about Uganda. We seem to talk about Reuters all the time, the news. News which is spinned. You become expert in spinning everything. Let's talk about reality. Let's talk about Africa. You're talking about symptoms of what is happening outside. You talk about human rights, and then you ask United States, what are they doing in Russia and Ukraine? You ask them, what is your human rights in the Middle East between Israel and the Palestinians? What is it that took you to Syria to create the Islamic State? What made you go to Afghanistan? What is it that you want in Congo that you land in forests at night with aeroplanes? What makes you divide and rule Africans? What is our problem? Are African enemies? No. We are being remote controlled, and we continue to be remote controlled. And until we become Africans, like Mbeki said, and look like Africans, we will not understand what is going on. We are being controlled from every angle. Economically, we are controlled. They even give us warnings. They control our parties. They bring their system. Capitalism is a system of divide and rule. The money that poured into the political system in the capitalistic state is very well known. So today, I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little bit different. In 1948, a man in South Africa wrote a book, Cry, My Beloved Country. And nobody seems to be crying for our states. We seem to be divided and at each other's necks. You've just had SADC, East African Community. You've just had this man doesn't like the other man. For what? The whole thing comes to one thing. These people want to continue to exploit these countries as much as they can, and therefore the divide and rule will continue to work with us and will continue to follow because we have failed to become Africans. What is happening here is management. There is a conflict theory in every part of the world, even in yourself. You have a conflict. The question is how you manage it. The next question is, how has management been in this country, Uganda, which is our country? Have we managed it well? Have we managed the conflicts well? There are conflicts. And there is going to be conflicts. Today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. These conflicts you are hearing, how do they come about? Where do they start? What's the cradle of these conflicts? What is the conflict, for example, between Uganda, Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, and so on and so forth? As I talk right now, we should have paid our condolences even before this program started to Nigeria, where so many people were killed because of another group of people who are being controlled by an outside force. How many people died? 160? Yeah. At a go? Really? And then, what is that group called? And then, what happened here when people died, just on the other side of the fence? The whole thing is being controlled, and the people are firing it from outside, and we are sitting here, we are not saying it, and we fight each other for no reason at all. We're fighting for nothing. So, let us go back, slow down, and find out, in the whole year you're talking about, 2023, have we managed our country well? I'm not talking about management of the country. I'm not talking about individuals. I'm not talking about our differences. All those things you're describing, this has happened, that happened, those are symptoms of bad management. Poor management. You are talking about something that we could have managed well. What is politics? You guys are university dons. I think politics is management of society. Yeah. Have we managed our society well? Have we managed these conflicts well? Because you're talking about conflicts which are created by people. These are, they don't come from some outer space. They are created by us. And then you copy. You copy the Americans, you copy the British. You guys have been to Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge. You come here, and all you're telling us are theories by those guys, and those guys do not follow the things they tell you. They tell you, do what I say, not what I do. What have they done in the countries where they've gone? What have they done to our country called Libya? It's an African country.
They've turned it a failed state.
It's a failed state, done by the same people. They are giving you warnings. If you don't take our values of, what is that thing called? LGB, whatever it is?
Anti-homosexuality.
Then we'll not give you money. I mean, really? In 2023, quarter of a century is going by next year, and you're still telling us? So I am of the view, as Africans, and all of us who are sitting here, please stop for a moment. Are we disciplined enough to turn these conflicts around and find a solution to our problems? Or are we here to call each other names, spin everything around? By the way, some of our people here have become fantastic spinners. They take something, spin it around. Baganda called it kajiko na tabura. You turn around everything. No. If something has gone wrong, can we find a solution? Can somebody stand up and say, yes, the 18 people got lost, the answer is this? What is this keeping? The thing is becoming stale. Tell us, are the 18 people lost or not? Tell us, are people being tortured, yes or no? Why must we go round circles? The chairman of the National Security Committee of Uganda is the president of Uganda. And there, Mr. President, if you're watching this show, could you kindly please come out, tell us, the questions. Let's have the answers. And we stop going over and over it, over and over it. Then you talk about roads that have failed. Yes, of course, they're about to fail. They've got a lifespan, a time limit.
They have a lifespan.
They have a life. You build a road for 20 years. 20 years later, you have to repair it again. It's simple common sense. We're here trying to put things around it. The economy. What? You guys, you're talking about the economies you learned to Makere here. Talk about the real thing. We've got gold. We've got marble. We've got this. We've got that. Why can't we excavate those and put them in our bank? Where are they? Where's the marble?
Karamaji.
Where is gold?
Busi and Morende.
Why can't we get this? Smelt them and put them in our bank. We have a Fort Knox here. You like America, Fort Knox. Where is your Fort Knox? Listen, I am sorry. I am tired of things that are so simple that we can solve, and we keep on talking and talking and talking. These are simple things. Life is short. You know, I really get flabbergasted.
But Captain, you spoke something about management.
Yes.
How is that resolved?
No, what I'm saying, you see, when you have a conflict, you know, we have this conflict of human rights. What is the solution? You're a manager. Give an answer. Yes or no. When we had the riots in Kampala, remember? They said people died. Government said, yes, 50 people died. These were standbys. These were killed. And we are going to compensate so much. We got the answer. That's what they call management.
So if the spinners are spinning that story, then what should management do about it?
No, if you, as a good manager, put out the right information, nobody will spin it. You will not spin what is right.
I agree with the captain. Our government spokespersons don't...
Listen, there is too much spinning and there's too much defense.
That we get lost on what...
Yes, you get lost.
The fact and what are the...
That's right.
What are the lies?
All I am trying to say, you people, you are dying to be members of parliament. You have 557 members of parliament. They can't even speak in a plenary. They speak for 2 minutes. Then the management of the whole civil service, the amount of money we are spending on administrative costs, you are sitting here and you cannot manage by saying, no, we need a parliament of 200 people. Simple.
Okay.
Then you go and say, we don't want 80 ministers, we want 40 ministers. That is what they call management. Decision. You've got to make a decision.
So who makes that decision?
All of us. But it's not one man. And this is the problem all of you have got. You keep on saying it's the president. No, all the people around the president, what are they doing? They are grandizing him. They are going on their knees. Mr. President, you are fantastic. They lie down. They want to be ministers. These are the things you are doing.
Okay.
Just a quick question, team. And really, I know you're going to talk about it, particularly the issue of, for instance, death. I've appeared on air with Honorable Kivumbi. I've also appeared with, I think that appearance was as well with the Honorable Deputy Attorney General Kafuzi Jackson and Ofono Pondo. Now, there's death as a cause of action. And I was telling our viewers, and I still hold that view, that we have robust systems. We have robust systems for enforcement and obtaining remedies in the courts of law. I know Mr. Waiswa may disagree to an extent, but I know as well as you do that you have also been a beneficiary of remedies in the courts of Uganda. So, I agree with you. There are solutions, but we keep running away from the solutions and instead indeed spinning. And
your last word,
Let me give something very simple. We are talking about integration. Today I was reading in the newspaper, some hunters, our local hunters,
went to
were hunting on the border between Uganda and Kenya here, and they were running after a bushback. It crossed a river, which is the boundary. It went on the other side, so the dogs followed it. And after that, the other people followed it. The people were arrested. They arrested them with the dogs. The dogs escaped and came back to Uganda. and the others were arrested. Now that's the kind of integration we have. Now let's get to something very serious. All I am trying to say, and I'm saying this because we are going in the new year, this is what I want. We've got to get Ugandans to believe we are Ugandans and this is our country, and we've got to unite them and make this country one and try and follow even our culture. We've got norms which are very good, and try and bring our people together. We should get away from this DNA of hating each other. We have a DNA of sectarianism. We have a DNA that doesn't allow us to see beyond our nose. This is our country. By the way, to be a Ugandan is a feeling. It's not even to be in the boundary. It is not even color. It is a feeling. Are you Ugandan? Do you want this country? Do you want it for your children? Do you want it for your grandchildren? Do you want it for posterity? Today I want to take this opportunity, and I want to finish with this, and I want to conclude. As we go into the new year, instead of going on the bad and the good things that happened, we must now try and get our management to work so that our society can get good management in the new year, and all the things that have gone wrong, we learn from them so that we don't repeat them again. Keeping on spinning them and repeating them does not help us. What helps us now? Can we go for the good, and can we go for the common good for the country and the people of this country, so that next year can be a better year? We've got enough resources to have our economy get up. We've got enough people who can do it. By the way, Ugandans, and I want to say this, when they work outside this country, they are highly recommended as good workers. Give them the same opportunity. Let them show us what they can do. Let's have good managers. You bring people, put them in the airline, put them in NSSF, tomorrow you hear this, tomorrow you hear that, and we are tired.
Okay.
So all I'm saying, let the management, the people in charge of management, manage this nation correctly. Mismanagement, well, mismanagement comes in when you have corruption and all that. That's part of mismanagement. It's bound to happen.
Nepotism. As well.
Okay.
Yeah, nepotism.
Allow me bring in Honorable Mara. Honorable Mara, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us. What is your review of 2023, both in the politics, the economy, and social? You and I have discussed Uganda Commercial Bank coming back. We have discussed the debt versus the development in this country. But most importantly, did you bring us a bronze, or you didn't come with anything from the golf you had in Kigali there?
Thank you very much, Timothy, and the distinguished members of the panel, and also the viewers. I'm speaking from Lira, the northern city. Timothy, we came back with a team goal. We came back with 2 gold medals. I didn't win a medal, but we did well as a team. Let me comment on what you've said. I've been listening passionately about my senior Honorable Babu. Sorry, I'm having a feedback.
We can hear you clearly. You can go on.
Okay. Thank you. I've listened to my senior, and he has talked eloquently about the challenges that we face. Looking at 2023, there are a couple of things that went well, and also there are some downsides to them. Let me start with the matter that has been discussed passionately by my colleague, the lawyer. He provided a lot of knowledge on the regional politics. Timothy and viewers, this year, the Somalia joined the East African community. And if you look at the total population now that we'll have, it's almost going beyond 200 million people. That provides a basis for a much bigger market for our goods and services within the region. Unfortunately, the quest for regional stability in DRC seems to have hit a dead end. And with some of our troops coming back home, and also the President Tshisekedi threatening war against the neighboring country, Rwanda. Also, consequently, you have seen ADF causing some mayhem in some parts of Western Uganda, and recently they killed some tourists, the couple that had come to for their wedding anniversary or you know, kind of honeymoon in Uganda. That is not good for the region. Because I thought that the integration was going to happen. There is acceleration of bringing in more countries, will provide for us a bigger market for trade. Unfortunately, you have this mistrust in the region, and President speaking openly to declare war on another country. And I think we must find an African solution to some of these problems, and we need to talk. If you remember, Rwanda, not very long ago, experienced a terrible genocide where almost 1 million people were killed in 100 days. With that kind of history, you don't want to hear about another war, even ourselves. So the leaders need to speak peace and speak cooperation more than war. The other thing, the people say, which happen in the country where people might not have noticed, is that this company from China, Qualcomm Steel 5 Company Limited, managed to establish, to accomplish 100 kilometers of our oil pipeline under the ECOP agreement. That then brings us nearer to this country beginning to experience our first oil. And if you remember,
Honorable Mara, are you still with
in
us?
our estimation, we are looking at.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please proceed.
Yes, in our estimate, we want to have this oil out by 2025 September. So this is really an acceleration. It's a progress that we must celebrate.
Okay, we seem to have lost Honorable Mara. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be digging into some of the biggest stories there that affect the economy that Sarah will be discussing there, debt versus the development in this country, but also their efforts being made there. We'll also talk about the Anti-Homosexuality Act that is there now. Multi-party politics, seeing DP, UPC, and FDC fractured there. What does that mean for the future of this country? Were we ready for it, or were too ambitious? This and more after this break.
Meet Stone Atwine, the co-founder of Eversend, a startup that is building financial technology from Uganda to the world. From currency exchange to business banking, Stone and his team are doing it all. Stone embodies the grit and the commitment to take a startup from nothing to something. Stone, keep building. You are unstoppable. MTN, the Unstoppable Network, celebrates you. Download the Eversend app, and together, let's support Ugandans like Stone, who are driving our country's unstoppable progress.
It's bigger and better! The Old Boys and Girls of Gulu Public School present the 5th edition of the Alumni Reunion Party with the theme, We Are the Bridge, Our Past, Present and the Future. The reunion will take place on the 30th of December 2023 at the Gulu Public School with so many activities aligned, starting with the prayer, annual meeting, car wash, nyama choma, entertainment. So don't miss. For more information, call 0772 529 700.
Metu Bus Industries, Namamve, the manufacturers of buses for transporters, schools, tour operators, and special purpose vans and any customized vehicle. Metu Bus Industries offers a range of buses known for safety, comfort, and reliability. Depending on your needs, a bus can simply be a point A to point B people mover with just seats, or a special design that includes power outlet, Wi-Fi, television, refreshment center, and any other specification. Buy your buses from Metu and support industrialization of Uganda. Contact us on 0788 118586 or 0782 030303. Email us metuafricabus@gmail.com. Visit our website www.metubusafrica.com.
It's super fast internet. It's a super camera. It's a super battery.
Phone battery full.
Yeah, it's a super deal. Get the Kabode Super from MTN now at a reduced initial deposit of only 49,000 shillings and pay the balance in Pola for as low as 833 shillings per day. Grab this Super Kabode deal and get 2 GB of free MTN data every month for 8 months. Get the Kabode Super now from any MTN shop countrywide. Everywhere you go, MTN. Regulated by UCC.
(1950s) and early 1960s non-aligned movement. The countries of the non-aligned movement represent nearly 2/3 of the United Nations members and contain 55% of the world's population. Membership is particularly concentrated in countries considered to be developing countries, although the non-aligned movement also has a number of developed countries. Gained the most traction in 1950s and early 1960s when the international policy of non-alignment achieved major success in decolonization disarmament.
Welcome back from that quick commercial break here on Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangwe. So in the studio, I'm joined by Professor Sarah Sali, who is the Dean at the School of Women and Gender Affairs there at Makerere University. I'm joined by Waiswa Alex Mufumbiro, the Deputy Spokesperson of the National Unity Platform, and the Vice Chairperson of PSFU, Miss Sarah Kajingo, who is with us today, and also Council Edgar Tabaro, and finally, Captain Francis Babu. Online, I have Honorable Omara Paul, who is the Member of Parliament for Tuke County there, and we'll be getting to some of that, of his feedback there when we get the signal and the link right there. Let me read some of your feedback coming through. Onesimus Masiko says, Onesimus Masiko is the chairperson of the Tea Outgrowers Association of Uganda Limited. Today, tea factories in Toro sub-region did not open for outgrowers. They only took the tea leaves from the nucleus estates. The big tea estates. Yes. Why make losses on farmers' tea there? Government is looking on. They are only on spending appetite for government and was to distribute free tea seedlings to farmers to set up tea gardens, which are now being uprooted. Nakajugo Shaki.
Just a quick one. Tea plants are being uprooted.
Yes.
And people in Toro are instead growing in Mairungi. Now, tea brings in up to 100 million US dollars. It's the third largest income generator for Uganda after gold re-exports, coffee, then tea. Now what has happened, the tea subsector has come to a grand halt. We sell our tea through the Mombasa auction, and some of our teas are fetching as low as 50 cents. The average cost, unit cost of production for tea delivered in Mombasa is between 90 and 90 cents or $1.20. Now, if our tea is being auctioned for 50 cents, that is much below the unit cost of production, and there's no use being in production anymore. So, as such, the tea subsector in Toro, Bushenyi, and Kigezi are calling upon government to come up with a Marshall Plan to rescue, one, especially through the people like Sarah Kajingo, have country-to-country bilateral agreements with the large tea-consuming countries like Egypt, Turkey, and Russia, because the traditional tea buying, the ones who buy the traditional tea markets for Uganda, Sudan, Somalia, Yemen, and Pakistan. First of all, Somalia, Yemen, political instability. Then even West Africa, the coups there have caused them to lack forex. So they are unable to buy the traditional Ugandan teas that they've been buying. Pakistan underwent devaluation of its currency. It used to be 85 rupees to $1 US. It's now over 385. So they are unable to buy Ugandan tea. So it's incumbent that the government comes with a Marshall Plan. Otherwise, entire households, 46% of the tea outgrowers in Uganda are from Toro sub-region.
Okay. Yeah. Let me come back to that one. Nakajugo Shakira from Kasanga says, for me, my highlight and question this year was asking myself, why has Uganda's security failed under the tested man and a Bush war veteran in Major General Jim Muhwezi, the Minister for Security, the growing habit of extrajudicial killings of fellow Ugandans in our country? Thank you very much. John Kamwesi in Kira says, the year has been wonderful in terms of the economic growth, the economic integration, seeing East African countries coming together. That means a lot is being traded. And in terms of investment and industrialization, Uganda is doing well with programs like PDM. However, the bad is corruption, insecurity, such are high in our country, and not forgetting the World Bank cutting off its donations, also not forgetting its funding some roads. Simon Sifas Ediamo from Serere. My highlight of this year, and this will go to Alex, my highlight for this year is Bobby Wine's BBC blunder about homosexuality, and this will haunt him for the next 3 to 5 years. When Bobby comes to Teso, we shall remind him, okay? Mugara George, I want to hear the guests mentioning the overwhelming support of the members of parliament on passing the Anti-Homosexuality Act and the president ascending to it into law. Wilson from Muyenga says, I like Sarah Kajingo's courage, more so being the PSFU board is here. To Sarah, I wonder whether MSMEs are in your business consideration, especially to small business recovery funds. The money has been in the bank for 2 years. The uptake of this money is 2 years down the road, and it's still only 18 billion out of the 200 billion, yet businesses are closing down due to lack of access to funds and loans. Keep your messages coming. Towards the tail end of the show, we'll be getting to them. Professor, let me come to you to the question that they put to us, but before I get to the Homosexuality Act, let me come to the saga that began this year. NSSF, Mabati, the GOAT saga. In your view, what went wrong and what's happening in the OPM office? The precurrent person is right there. And this became something that took us around for quite a bit of time.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Timothy. I think before I go to that question, I think there are two things I needed to to put right, or maybe to bring a slant to it. I don't think there's something peculiar about the DNA of Ugandans or Africans that they don't like each other. I think Captain said something like that, but I know he said it because he is coming from the view that we should be seen to be uniting more. But otherwise, when you look globally, society has been pivoted forward through conflict. Even right now, the theaters of war are not only in Africa. We have wars in Burma, we have the Basques and the Spaniards the Spanish have never settled, we have things in Latin America. So we don't want to leave this show thinking that there's something peculiar about Africans, there's something abnormal about Africans. That's the narrative actually that others construct about us. Yes. But it is a human condition that when resources reduce, people fight for them. And that has been going on for centuries, even when Africa was at peace. The other thing I thought we could also maybe focus on, I know there's the whole issue of the tea, and Edgar raised the issue of the tea. And I'm just wondering, isn't it high time that we actualized our thinking of going beyond the non-traditional cash crops? And Captain Francis Babu has just, in his submission, he said, we have things in the ground. Why don't we bring them out? Sarah Kajingo talked about other things, the sports, the whatever. So there's a lot that is earning this country forex in terms of sports, in terms of tourism, in terms of gold, marble, and the rest that Captain Francis Babu talked about. Isn't it high time we thought of how to strengthen those traditional cash crops than being stuck with tea? It's good, tea has done very well in the past, but if it's not doing very well, do we need a Marshall Plan about tea, or do we need to get the heavy machinery with good management to go down?
Just for information, the president himself the other day mentioned the C's and the T's. Yes. Remember, those are the British.
Coffee,
yes. The British are the ones who brought them.
Yes.
In fact, even used the kiboko to make us plant them.
Yes.
So those are very, we can review, and that's exactly what you're saying.
We can review. So there are those traditional like coffee.
Professor, you're looking at the macro. Unfortunately,
no, I know you're talking about the households. I know you're talking about the households.
Household level.
Yes, but you see, if we get stuck at that level, then also the macro will not. Like if there's a traditional cash crop like coffee, which is booming, there's no reason why we should cut that short. You promote it. But if there's something which is fetching few cents, like you're saying, the issue then should not be to actually boost that. It should be to direct resources.
Professor, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you.
Yes.
And this is we professors are like that.
It's about it.
My deepest psychology. No, actually, what I was talking about is diversification of markets, rather than diversification at that micro level. Really, a tea crop. Some of the teas that we have in Uganda were planted before Honorable Captain Babu was born.
I totally understand, but in the markets you mentioned, they were all international markets. Pakistan, I don't know where.
Yes, but
so what I'm saying for me, if there are households in Toro that are suffering because of the collapse of the price of tea, the Marshall Plan may not necessarily be to boost their tea production. The Marshall Plan could be encourage them to go into something else.
Like Mairungi as they are doing.
No, not necessarily Mairungi. They are promoted soybean. This government from 1987 has been promoting other kinds of non-traditional cash crops, peanuts, sesame, and all that, moringa, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So, but that does not mean that we should be blind to the plight of the tea growers. We should do something about it.
And there's a gender aspect to it. But
I understand.
I'll leave it to you. I don't want to go into your area of expertise.
Let's come back, Professor.
Now we go back to the question. And your
Savers
question,
money, really the plight of the people in Karamoja. This was an initiative to be able to really give them a lift, and yet it became something that involved, like Edgar said, from the vice president all the way down.
Yes, but for me, the first question I would ask is, how did we come to know about the thing? We came to know about the thing because of government's investigating machinery. No. Okay? If before the government spoke about these things having gone wrong, we didn't know. You and me didn't know. So the government investigative machineries, and whether it's parliament, whether it's police, whether it's IGG and the rest, are the ones that bring to us, that raise our awareness of what has gone wrong. And within the same state, they develop mechanisms to deal with it. Now, if investigations have been done and some people have been found culpable and others have not been found culpable. Now, what basis do we rely on to say that actually even the other one would have gone? So it's true, these have actually captivated our media for the whole year, save us money, but we also saw something being done around that. The management in that sector was well aligned. Through the government machinery, we got to know that people were going to Dubai for team building meetings. Maybe they needed them, but you see, government also didn't tell us whether that was the wrong thing to do or not to do. I think there's one thing, we sometimes tend to be excited about things, and sometimes we don't get the facts, okay? And then sometimes we want to legislate where we don't have a mandate, but in all sincerity, misuse of public resources is a wrong thing. Whether we're talking about savers money, whether we're talking about Mabati or anything else, it is a wrong thing to do. But the issue is that we are dependent on government telling us, one, what has gone wrong, and two, what has been resolved. So if the same people who told you there's something going wrong here are the same ones who are telling you that here it is very bad, here it's not very bad, and we have resolved it this way, then it becomes difficult for you to continue agitating and arguing about the same facts. But ideally, in principle, I think misuse of public funds is a very wrong thing to do.
Because talking about NSSF, sticking with you, Professor, this saga came out on a banter between the MD and the minister. That's how it came out there.
And the minister was clear on highlighting what had gone wrong.
Each of them was playing. One was playing with an HR policy, the other one was playing with an act.
Yes.
And that's where the clash came in. It
Yes.
looked like something of egos. 28 grounds were found when Parliament went into review of this. But the issue here is money being misused, especially, and no one held culpable at the end of the day. It stops somewhere in the tracks. At what point do we see Timothy Nyangweso held accountable and paying for such things?
I think, I think that's important, but it also depends on whether we know all the facts. I think sometimes we think something has gone wrong when actually it's provided for in the law. You're the one who says not everything that is factual is truth, and not everything that's truth is fact. So it's true, that came out at the helm of that banter. We even had here the minister who explained what could be going wrong and what could have gone wrong. But the issue going back is, before we find anyone culpable, we need to ask, was that kind of use of money provided for in the law and in their policies or not? I know one thing which excited us most in the public, and we felt really, really shortchanged, was that team building meetings were happening in Dubai. The question is, before we hold those who went for team building in Dubai, are they allowed by law? Do their laws permit them to do that?
Why Dubai?
Or it doesn't? So if their policies permit them to do that, then we go back to the issue of the act.
Do they
to
have
legislate
better air conditioning?
against those kinds of things. But the reason why no one was arrested
Africa.
could be because their policies allowed for it. And it does not only happen in NSSF. I mean, look at the trips that are made internationally in organizations, even where there are struggles. Look at the expenses, the purchases government entities make, okay?
Professor, let me put something. 6 billion asked by the minister to expand the fund.
Yes.
Money invested in two bodies. Money invested in a company that is not making any profit. Money invested in a housing estate in Lubowa. And those are facts there.
Yes, but the issue is, do their policies permit them to do that? Does the act permit them to do that? If they are not allowed to do that, then actually they crossed the line and they should have been held.
The letter of the law is okay, but the spirit behind it.
I think we needed to interest ourselves into the policies and what is permissible. And I think we discussed this here and we said, if that is permissible, but actually the spirit is not good, that's when we now need to go back to the act and curtail the powers of the entities, and not just NSSF, but many other government entities, from those kinds of behaviors and those kinds of acts. But otherwise, it becomes difficult for anyone to be crucified on a crime which was not committed because they made their law to permit them to do that kind of thing.
Do you have confidence in NSSF and government, especially with all this having played out in the first quarter of this year?
In terms of savers money?
In terms of savers money, in terms of value for money?
Yes, I think I still have confidence in the NSSF because I believe, even away from the media, things are being put right.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
I saw you really not agreeing with what the professor has said. I'll let you rebut to that, but also I'd like to come to something that really played also in the media this year. When you look at multi-party politics, when you look at DP and UPC and FDC, so your response to what you want to say about that saga, but also multi-party politics, was it premature for us to engage in it in 2005, for us to get here, or is the stage too big for all of us to be playing?
Well, I will get to that, but I wanted to aver a few and connote a few issues to the professor. And for example, it is clear that the law is very selective. These reports are as a result of the Auditor General's report.
Government entity.
Some of them, then the issue of Mabati was from a whistleblower down in the village who knew that this was something that was supposed to be done. And then also,
Mabati were clearly indicated government of Uganda, not for sale.
yeah, the case in the case of the Sechikubos, it is clear that Parliament and other organs of government are not listening posts to answers given by the executive at certain critical points. So a minister giving an explanation does not make it meritorious. It must be critically analyzed, factually audited, and then probably that person can get a clear. The background of the loss of billions of money in the National Social Security Fund has been monumental. From the time when that lady Zoba Koko Bakuru ran to America claiming that cheats, people were writing cheats to General Saleh was writing cheats to the fund to have over 5 billion shillings. You remember what happened to somebody who had actually presented the whole paper on white collar fraud, Chandi Jamwa. The very things these are doing are some of the offenses that were charged of Chandi Jamwa. Going into business, where you're not going to benefit from, investing on behalf of the company lots of funds, and then withdrawing the investment at the time when you're supposed to be picking dividends. So it has been a continuity of abuse of the trust of the Ugandans. It's not about, you see, Captain Francis Babu has been blunt and on this show enough. I wish all of us would be courageous to follow his line. It is not the law that is the problem in Uganda. It is the human resource management and longevity, the grandizing of somebody who has overstayed in power, diverting from the interests of the nation, and all of us fearing to speak to power because we all know what it means. And he has said people go and lie before him. You look at what we are talking about, the cash crops and whatever. We talked about coffee. Instead of investing the money into a corporate entity, over $10 million, 37 billion has been given to Odrek to look for market elsewhere. The tea you're talking about, the tea we are talking about, we have been benefactors of that crop who would have now advanced productivity at the micro level. Not at the macro level, because at the macro level that is a given where there's a lot of capital needed, but at the micro, still a person down, there are places you go and you find those small types of tea leaves to put on your tea from different people who have managed to process. Can we think aloud in this digitized system? I have a friend of mine, he's also trying to have that as a business in production, but how are they being helped? As you speak about PDM, the Parish Development Model Programs, are they going to help those that are having something that can be productive and then also create jobs for the young people? Or they are going to look for the political personalities? So the abuse of that money of the National Social Security Fund, for me, given the history you have had, the availability of it in the coffers and how money has been managed elsewhere, I don't think that it will benefit those that serve from it. But anyway, it's not about the law, but the human resource and the selective law on those who have criminalized the running of that fund.
And when
on
we come
the issue
of the cooperative agreements, DP is in one, UPC is in one, but also the fracture within the FDC. Will the National Unity Platform survive this?
The longevity of Genome 7 affects so many institutions in Uganda. We will refuse to say it the way it is, but as Captain said, everybody will begin to work towards that power. And once it is grandizing, once it is lying before them, once it is about remaining in the position that you are, then all the institutions will have definitely to break down. There is a lot of suffocation. One, from security. You would wonder on so many occasions where multi-party activities are being stopped by not even the police, by the UPDF. The National Unity Platform has people who are charged in the court martial, civilians. Professor Sally is a woman activist. Olivia Lutaya, a mother of two, was abducted. After the abduction, was charged and is still charged in the military court martial. The commander-in-chief averred to the interview that he's not aware. The level at which they are being charged, they are not facing a lower cadre judge. They are facing the highest. One who is in charge of Guti was the one in charge of charging Kaihura. It was Guti who was in charge of Olivia Lutaya. There is a whole constitutional ruling to the level of the Supreme Court of Kawaziguruka, former member of parliament of Nakawa, on not charging civilians before the court martial. It is an abuse on the military, but it is also a total abuse of the rule of law, because a civilian is supposed to be charged under the known processes of the civil courts. And what is ashaming, why we should straight speak to power, that even after we have made the noise, we have run here and there, we have done this and that, they arrest people who they have confirmed to us that now this one is the head of ADF. He has been Major Anzo. He has been disturbing us from Eastern DRC. The entire operations we have been doing, he's responsible for the murder of these people. They arrest people in where they burnt the tourists. And then these people, these known terrorists, these people government has characterized as worst enemies of Uganda, are charged in the civil court. This paradox is unacceptable. And that is where you will begin from understanding the challenges of why political parties are not working, because the security forces are working towards grandizing the one who gives them the bread. Let me tell you, my brother, when journalists went to the UN human rights offices here,
Prince Charles.
Yes, the people who attacked them were members of our Special Forces Command.
No.
It was the military police. But let me ask you,
even by your own admission, without going into the names of the people, let us go with the military police.
The military police, and General David Muhoozi responded to that and took action.
Action is always purported to be taken. This has been the song.
But Alex, they were arraigned before us. We saw them as journalists. They were put before us. But let me ask a question. You keep saying everything revolves around the president. If we remove the president from this picture, what is the problem of Uganda?
If we remove the problem of this
If we remove the president out of this picture, what is the problem of Uganda's
Alex,
multi-party
the
politics?
problem will have ended.
No, you know, when somebody says we say that the problem, it's not even the person.
It is who?
No. The presidency is a whole, it is a whole chapter that runs this nation, not the individual. And what we are talking about is the usurping of power of the presidency by an individual, of which it has caused abuse and breakdown of institutions.
That's why I've asked you.
And the rule of law.
If we remove the president,
yes,
His
and
Excellency,
I believe we shall have taken a long stride in institutionalizing Uganda to have institutions working and respect for the rule of law. It is the president
it's
who
an
is,
assumption, it's not factual.
let me tell you, it is the president who is responsible for opening up everything in Uganda. That one you know as a fact. It is the president who is to write to the Chief Justice, which is a total abnormality and abuse of rule of law, to determine a matter that is before court for adjudication. It is the president supposed to write to the military to release prisoners. It is the president. Now, once it becomes that,
as you have said,
once you have
the
that
chapter,
capture,
isn't the problem the law?
the state capture. No, it's not the law. It is the power of the individual to usurp the functionality of the institutions.
Okay. Let me bring in Sarah. Sarah, when we look at the economy, especially something that Alex mentioned, debt versus development, as PSFU, how are you involving young people? Because I heard you say number and something Professor said some time back. One of the things we have a problem with in this country is data. Minister of Finance has said this country is in need of 700,000 jobs annually. IMF and World Bank have said 1 million jobs. What we have annually is about 300 jobs, 1,000 jobs. We have a deficit of 400,000. How are you getting young people involved in this economy? Two, debt versus development. As PSFU, isn't this a hindrance to what you're trying to achieve as an objective?
Sure. Before I even go to that, you know, capital is a coward.
Big coward.
Capital runs away from danger. Capital, because there seems to be
Real and perceived.
there seems to be unending political contestation in the country, January to January. And I don't know why. I don't know whether it is why leaders choose to polarize the country. It affects all of us. And you remember at the beginning I said that we need to coalesce around national interests. For example, majority of Ugandans today are young. And which is why for us, because I'll speak for the aspects that I'm charged with, we, a few months ago, this year, again in partnership with MasterCard Foundation, and I'm happy that these partners around the world are looking out for PSFU to partner to deliver jobs, skilling, to grow businesses, because we stand on the great shoulders of our founders, Dr. James Mulwana, Professor Magi Chigozi, and their contemporaries. May Dr. James Mulwana's soul rest in peace. Our chairman over the years, distinguished people. And because of the values we espouse, and because we execute projects within their timelines, and that we are scientific about it, I said earlier that we have cumulatively created 416,000 jobs. But we had to take a step back and involve the young people. And in the last 5 months, we launched a PSFU youth engagement campaign where we don't seek to lecture to the young people, which happens most of the time. Get young people in one room and lecture to them. So we had to take a step back as the leadership of Uganda's private sector, as the apex body, to say we need these young people. One, provide them a platform to express themselves. Two, as program designers, listen to them so that we co-create these programs with them. but also involve them along the way, not simply as providers of work, say in factories, but that they too can own businesses. And which is why we've been advocating and even calling out UDB that they need to relax their conditionalities to ensure more MSMEs can qualify and therefore benefit from business recovery. Now, regarding the noise which capital is always fleeing from, now you have heard from Alex, and I mean, I respect Alex's opinions in as far as his political persuasion, because all we can do is to try and maintain minimum social cohesion in the country so that we are able to move. Now, regarding the case, say, of Oliver Lutaya, each year the president hosts a media engagement. We had one last year, we had one just a few days ago. Every year the president asks journalists, asks us, and I've been attending all those media engagements, give me names. One, you don't have to be a member of the security forces or a member of the government of the Republic of Uganda to say no to illegal arrests. He has categorically said that these arrests of keeping people in police cells without charging them for more than 48 hours is illegal. So he says Uganda has so many structures, from the LC1, chief administrative officers, chairmen of districts. We have so many big offices around the country. So for me, what I understood from it is that, because I would be remiss if I left this program, and I don't appear on talk shows quite often.
I'm surprised you can.
Yes, my professor dragged me here, and I thank her. Thank you, Prof. Sarah, my namesake. You see, the media has to play, we imagine that the media plays a normative role for the country, that the media always acts in the interests of the people. Now, if you've been to school, and Makerere University in particular, where critical theorists are calling out the media and saying, please, the media all over the world has been captured either by business interests, somewhere captured by the state, captured by interests of media owners. So they set the agenda, which is what Captain Babu...
You find the people in government, business owners, and they also own the media. So you find the three have now coalesced to set the agenda.
Yes, so which is what Captain Babu was questioning initially. So of course we appreciate the fact that we've been hosted to discuss the highlights about what either the media may have picked or have set actually by the agenda setting theories that we studied. So when they set the agenda and then we discuss those are the major issues, sometimes we lose it. So given the fact that the media across the world is influenced by those other factors I have mentioned, either it's the state or media owners or advertisers, business, economic interests. And so we have a duty, because for me...
I have not got to your climax. Those where you're leading me to.
Oh yes, the issue of Olivia Lutaya.
Because
so
it's very important.
For this, I think the second time journalists raised the issue of arrests and abductions in courts, and for me, I'm very, very cautious. I don't use terms and words recklessly.
Any arrest that is outside of the law is an abduction.
But the thing is, I cannot
I know you're very uncomfortable.
I cannot
with
come
that,
to national.
I know you're very uncomfortable with that, and I respect that position. But any arrest that is outside of the law is basically an abduction. Even
You see,
Dr.
protect me, Timothy.
The issue of Olivia Altaya, you know,
let her
is
finish.
very important.
Let us give
Give Sarah, please, room
Let
to-
me make my point.
Yes, please.
Yeah, one, I'm not saying that really I don't contest the fact that that it's illegal to arrest people in the manner that that I usually
Politics.
yes, for political reasons or what. It's of course totally wrong, but the issue is that before I share my thoughts, the president said, yes, give me names. One, if you hear you are a journalist or any Ugandan and you have heard that somebody is illegally being arrested or has been illegally arrested, use the leadership structures in your area to take this up, and we can do this, versus going all over political talk shows and condemning it. What have we done on our part as Ugandans, as individual Ugandans, but especially the media? We have a duty, for example, we owe Ugandans a duty to go down to these villages, go down, for example, the case of Oliver Lutaya. The president said, get the facts, because for sure, every day there's a gentleman called Pius Adwar and others who tag me in this, in the case of Oliver Lutaya on Twitter. Sometimes I get busy with so many things, but so I did not have all the facts, and I admit that I did not. So, but I put it to the president, because I know.
In Luganda.
Yes, and there were reasons why I did so in Luganda, which I shared. But because he led a liberation struggle over the years, since the 70s, that was rooted in the freedom of the people. And he, after a protracted struggle of so many years, in 1986, he takes charge of the country. And we all have a breather, and the country has hope. And all these things that were committed in the days of old, the country, the 90s, for me, I miss the 90s. They were bright years where you saw people across the political persuasion, pursuing.
We were young and impressionable then. Now,
let me complete my point.
Please complete.
Yes, so
In fact, they were against the status quo.
So we were rallied together. We were proud of our motherland. So why I put it to the president is that because I know him as a liberator, because I know him as a freedom fighter.
Like we did.
So because for me it is three things. It is three things. One, and I've had government officials raise this, they say that one, there are political actors who are framing our country and setting the people up against their leadership. So my question is, if that is the truth, if there are political actors who are framing the country by claiming that there are people who are arrested illegally while not, then why are you landing in the trap by either going silent, by not interrogating these matters, and coming back to us very, very fast with the people and saying, the truth of the matter is this and that. Secondly, could there be overzealous personnel within security who are doing some of these things? If they are, again, it's incumbent on security that we know that has maintained our country stable for the last 35 plus years to investigate these things and bring the people to book. The NRA way, you recall the NRA way? The third, if in fact some of these people are involved in these acts, criminal acts, produce them before courts of law, let them be tried, charged, and they face their sentences. But there is the proven approach that His Excellency President Museveni has applied over the years. He integrated groups that picked arms against his leadership, against his government, several groups, UPDA, and we see some of their former leaders serving this government. They were integrated in UPDF, and they are serving very well. The other approach that works very well, which he has spoken over, I mean, if you have lived in Uganda for the last so many years, you will know that he has always said that you can separate the misled from the misleaders. So, but that is if it is true that they are committing these acts. Can we therefore distinguish the misled from the misleaders, and on humanitarian grounds let the misled off the hook? The other one also, again, is that it is incumbent on all of us across political persuasions to not polarize the country, to ensure that we build peace. Sometimes we make jokes about peace, but we can't take peace for granted. I mean, you cannot do anything, you will not run your stall in a market. So now, the case of Oliver Lutaya in particular, the president directed. He directed one of his staff, because again, when we say that by him directing his usurping authority, if in fact somebody along the justice system has subverted the law and somebody is arrested uncharged for so many years, then it is all right for the media, for journalists, to put it to the top CEO of the country to seek his action, to seek his investigation into the matter. And for me, I am hopeful. Again, recently I read, I think it was the Honorable Matthias Mpuga's Twitter, in which he said 480 people initially were unaccounted for, but that now it's only 18 people. Of course, human lives are not statistics. You cannot say only 18 people. Even one life should be valued. So I'm thinking that aside from how we disagree politically, we need to build a country that works for everybody, where every life feels valued. So the case of Oliver Lutaya, which I raised, I'm hopeful that the member of staff who was charged, but also separately, together with other journalists, we are going to investigate this and come up with a brief, and hopefully her case, and if there are any others, can be sorted in the spirit of building a country that's cohesive, that's socially cohesive, where, I mean, even when we disagree politically, we can still share a cup of tea, build peace, grow our little businesses. With 33 others. Yeah. Thank you for that information, Alex. So for me, my appeal to political actors in the country, it's not good to build political capital on the basis of misinformation or mishandling. And you know, that's not our country. I don't know who said that Ugandans hate each other. Expatriates who live here over the last so many years, every year, they have severally voted Uganda as one of the friendliest countries where they can bring a family, bring up a family. We are the most hospitable country. We are everything good. And so let's all get invested in this and ensure that we have a country that is really, that's not polarized.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Council, let me come to you. This Anti-Homosexuality Act seems to be biting more than we anticipated. One, the World Bank says no. Two, we are receiving, slaps, travel bans. Some of our officials are receiving restrictions there. Did we anticipate this? And being that our biggest part of development in the budget is donor funded, and how far would it bite?
Did you anticipate this? Very much so. I'm on forums on which I and Sarah are, and we've had very robust exchanges there. She knows my position. She knows my position. I'm a liberal. And the position is that, one, we have laws on unnatural sex in Uganda. Various laws in the penal code and what have you. We have laws that protect children from pornography. We have laws that actually outlaw what they legislated. And I want to take it just a little bit in time, back in time, when I think it was at a caucus of the NRF at State House, where the president was telling them to go slow on that legislation that they were proposing then, the one that was overturned by
2014.
the Constitutional Court. And this was his explanation, that one, the lobby group for that, the lobby for that group is big. Two, I think he had received a call from the Secretary of State at that time, Hillary Rodham Clinton, complaining. And President Museveni told this committee, the caucus, that look here, the other day they called a rally and they had over 1 million people. How many of you have addressed 1 million people apart from myself here? Are you ready to face that? So the consequences were very clear. And indeed the heat has been felt. Our currency had been performing very well in comparison to the currencies in the region. It is still performing very well. And the performance is mainly boosted by regional trade. The Sudanese pound and the Congolese franc are illiquid. They are not easily convertible. So those two countries re-export, or rather they use gold as a medium of exchange. And if you look at the figures from Bank of Uganda, our gold re-exports to the UAE and Turkey are inversely proportional to the commodities that we export to those countries. Now, donor inflows are tied in the ecosystem. One, forex. Two, revenue collections. Now, when the donors pulled out, we saw a knee-jerk reaction. The dollar, I think, it went up to 3.8 at some point. 3.8. That was a knee-jerk reaction to decrease the donor or development partner support. Two, we had a revenue shortfall of 600 billion. Now, answering your question, we saw it coming. And the question that I would ask time and again, was it necessary? I've heard all the arguments for and against. And I also listened to Captain Francis Babu, a person I grew up admiring. I've told you many times. He was a guest of honor at my sports day in 1989 at Nakasero Primary School, where I was with your own siblings, Sarah and I think Michael?
Yes.
Sarah and Michael. We did our piece at Nakasero Primary in 1989. We were a guest of honor. He said he's pushed for the issue of culture. Now, Uganda cannot run away from the globalization that is taking, that is really capturing and captivating everybody.
So should it lose its identity?
No, far from it, far from it. The question is of tact. We already have enough laws in place. Have we enforced them? Have we enforced them is the question. And given the way things are, and going into 2024, we are going to have increased challenges in one, tax revenue. Two, beginning 1st January, we will have 2 years to the next election. So we're entering election cycle, a new election cycle. And you know, from experience, whenever we're entering election cycle, our fiscal discipline comes into check. There is a tendency for one, we develop appetite, one for supplementary expenditure. Two, the budgeting process is tied to elections. The budgeting process is on now. I think they should have presented policy papers. Then I think in April, we'll do the background to the budget. Then in May, June, we have the budget being read and read before Parliament to be passed by Parliament. Now, if you look at the revenue projections, we've had good performance in this year. Headline inflation is at 2.5%. Our repo rate is the central bank rate is 9.5. Commercial rates have averaged 17–18%, depending on which banking institution you have for premium banking.
For clarity, I wanted to know about the shilling against what? The dollar or these other currencies?
All these other currencies, believe me. And the reason why you had Ugandans going to buy goods in Kenya is that our currency is now stronger than the Kenyan currency. About 2 years ago, for 1 Kenyan shilling, you get 36 Uganda.
It's about 25 now.
It's now 23. So the reason why we're going to purchase goods in Kenya is because our currency is stronger. So you would rather go and purchase from Kenya than purchase the same goods in Uganda.
Even the dollar, it's not that bad.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad. We do well. Pardon?
At
3.7 it has been around that for about 2
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
At
3.7. And more importantly, by the way.
And at 23.
Yeah, 23 as in for 1 Kenya shilling.
No, the Kenyan dollar, the dollar in Kenya has also.
Okay. Yes, Edgar, as you conclude, what do you see as the projection as repercussions to this act as I come to Captain Francis Babu?
Unfortunately, I'm tied. My hands are tied because the matter is before court.
Yes.
And the court is going to pronounce itself on it. So I don't want to talk about the legality. I'm talking about the economics of it. I'm curtailed under the law to discuss a matter that is before court. It's called sub judice. It would be professional. It would be unprofessional of me to do so.
Captain Francis Babu, in many corridors, peace, reconciliation, really negotiation for where our country should be. Sarah said something about Ugandans don't hate each other. What do we need to galvanize this country to have better management, but also focus on priorities as citizens in 2024?
Thank you very much. I don't.
And I also say smile when Edgar was speaking. So I would like to hear that response.
Yeah, no, I'll talk about that. What I find difficult is you mix issues. Foreigners coming here and we welcoming them is not the same as the difference between brothers and sisters. Those are two different things. Now, the problem is the discipline. We are talking about behavior here. We're talking about behavior, and we are talking about how people conduct themselves. Now, everything you talked about in government a few minutes ago about Mabata and what is bad behavior. People are not following the norm. And what hurts me is people have got an excuse. The president has stayed too long. No, your behavior being bad is not because the president has stayed that long. You're just bad-mannered. So we need to look at our behavior as Ugandans. We need to look at the way we do some of the things. You're given a responsibility. You should have some discipline in that bit and behave in a certain way. Now, I go back and I look at what everybody's been talking about. There is something that I will quote for you today. In Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore, if you are caught with drugs, you are sentenced to life imprisonment or you are killed. Now, that is extreme. How come the Americans and the Europeans have picked on Uganda? Are we the only ones who have said that our culture doesn't allow this? Is this selective? Why are they being selective about Uganda? We did not do anything. We did not kill anybody. And some of the spinning that people have been mistreated is not there. All we are saying is that our culture does not allow this kind of behavior. Full stop. We've not said anything bad. Now, I like my liberal friend here. But if we don't like something, you don't force me to have it. Are you with me? I'm not saying I'm not saying we should not think about it. All I am saying is that we've got away as a country. There are certain things we don't believe in. Now, you're talking about this homosexuality. I'm very concerned about drugs. I want that Singapore law to come here. I want that if you're found with one piece of a stick in prison. That's my thinking about it. Okay? It's finishing our youth. You keep on talking about youth. Our youth are all finished because of drugs. By the way, we even have cocaine now in this country. Now, when you talk about this
Mugo.
Yes, there's a Mugo, there's a Big Rex, I don't know what, all sorts of things. Now, I am worried about our country. And I want us to stop our politicians to become indisciplined. Indisciplined, oh, I am indisciplined because Museveni has stayed for too long. No, don't be indisciplined. Become disciplined and find a way to ask the president that time is enough. Now, but when you become indisciplined, it takes two. By the way, my brother here was talking about civilians not going to courts. But if a civilian, like the ones you talked about in Western Uganda who were caught, they should have gone to a military court.
Yeah.
That was a mistake.
The irony is that those are charged in the
No, I agree with you. Yeah. I'm saying a civilian can go to a military court if he's found to hold arms against government. And you've heard of Guantanamo Bay? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Guantanamo Bay, they took people there. They were civilians. So we have to be very careful. Who is caught here? But if a civilian who is innocently taken there, it's not allowed. But if he's holding arms, that's a different thing. But let's go to the discipline of our politicians. You know, you're talking about the NSSF, what. This is misbehavior. Bad behavior. Bad character. How do we deal with this kind of situation? And the law is very clear. How do we do? What strategies do we have to be selective? Who not to take to court? Who to take to court? How do we get to that? These are the kind of things we should be thinking of. That goes back to my initial thing: management. How do we manage these kinds of conflicts? To end this very quickly, there is a lot of indiscipline in this country. How do we bring people to the fold of discipline? You know, when we elect these people to become members of parliament, they're not better than this professor. They're not better than him. They're not better than this young Yola. They're not better than her. But we elect them, and immediately we elect them, they get a title called honorable. They're supposed to change their behavior. They're supposed to behave as honorable members. There are certain things that you're supposed to do. We even give them immunity. When they're in parliament, they can open their mouth and say whatever they want. Now, if you go there and you misbehave, you don't do the right thing, this is where I come in. Do we have character? And I'll come to the word character here. A young man like you, yourselves here, he has done computer, he's a cyber expert. I found him one day. I said, you've done very well. He said, yes, sir, we are doing very well. We have a company in Congo, we have a company in South Africa, we have a company in Ethiopia. I said, that's very good. We have a lot of Ugandans who have got computer, they are computer experts from Makere. I said, yes, we have a lot of Ugandans, even with PhDs, they are very good. I said, yes, but we have a problem, sir. I said, what is the problem? We have a problem of character. Ugandan, I've got a lot of very good people, but we have a problem with some of our character. How do our people behave in management of this country? In the management of this country, do we have the behavior and the character that is required to run this country? I want to end by saying, yes, President Museveni being the excuse of some of us to fight everybody else because he stayed there for too long. The president himself the other day was asked a question. He said, be careful, you might get blood pressure. But very soon or later, I'll tell you what I think. So I think the President Museveni should be the one to tell us when he thinks he can leave. Oh. But at the end of the day, not waste time on whether he stays there or long or not. We should also behave ourselves. We should not misbehave simply because he's there. And that is another point that I wanted to bring up. I want us, all of us, to get together, become one, unite this country, and ask the president, now you see we are doing very well, don't you think it's time you said goodbye?
Thank you very much. Let's have Honorable Mara and be able to call it a morning or a night there. Honorable Mara, what do we need to do in 2024, different from 2023, to elevate this country to the next level?
Thank you, Timothy. Maybe before I say that, let me just capture a few things. I think what you have already mentioned, that this 2023, the economy of Uganda actually rebooted with the macroeconomic environment becoming very, very stable. We have talked about inflation now at 2.3%, and exchange rate has stabilized at 3.7 something, which is actually good for our country. And our purchasing power parity have actually is much stronger than our neighbors. So the guy at the central bank, we really need to applaud him for managing our macroeconomic indices. Secondly, Parliament needs a very good job on one of the tax amendment bills which have become an act now. We, in the process, actually got some treatment of Islamic banking financial services and the full services, which has actually given us opportunity to provide Islamic banking services in Uganda. I think one part has been launched, and I hope that some capital can come into the country now to help us, provide affordable capital to some of the SMEs and enterprises in Uganda. The other one also, there was a tax amendment waiver of interest penalties. Believe you, many businesses have rushed to pay off their taxes before the 31st of December. And I believe that URA is going to collect substantial amount of money. I know they are behind budget, but many Ugandans really want to catch up before 31st of December, so that they benefit from the interest and also the benefit from the waiver on interest and waiver on penalties. So this has been really very good for our country, so that we turn around. I think going forward, Timothy and viewers, I would want to be very optimistic that 2024 will actually be a year of progress. I know that ESFC has warned that in terms of budget for the country, our discretionary expenditure has gone on account of payment for loans and interest, and also settling some of the Bank of Uganda debts. But nonetheless, in terms of the major indicators of the economy, they are all positive. So in terms of the growth of the economy, I think I'm more optimistic that Ugandans are going to see a turnaround on the economy. What I am really sad about is that we have failed to fight corruption. Regardless of the fact that some of them are clear as night follows the day, we have not taken action to deal with corrupt people. And this is actually that has made this country so endemic. We need to deal with corruption in this country. I know President Museveni talked about it not very long ago, that there will be no space for corrupt people. I really look forward to see the day when the corrupt people are punished in this country. So I am looking towards a better country, greater stability. We are an island peace in East Africa. I also want to believe that the leaders will deal with the regional stability around us in a more progressive way. I don't want to see instability in Kenya, or instability in DRC or in Rwanda. Because when there is instability around East Africa, there is no way in which you can make progress, because we are a NATO country and we are not trading more progressively with our neighbors and having a using our industry.
I think I seem to have lost Honorable Mara, but we got it from the macro, from the economics there, but also on the taxation for people to be able to take advantage of that 31st day. But let me read some messages and then be able to call it a morning there. Mzee Simbwa from Nakaseke district says, igniting income with Emyoga PDM, their success are bigger percentages, but they're hampered by land grabbing, by the judiciary overcoming some of the things that they're going through. Captain Francis Babu, a real senior citizen of the country, reduce legislators, stop abductions, limit corruption towards zero like Singapore did. 2023, the East African force being replaced in DRC, what caused that? Regional integration needs an urgent trust to overcome the obstacles. In Uganda, let's have the will in our executive to start enrooting or uprooting corruption there. Deo from Teso says, I have really loved what Captain Francis Babu has said, but what advice would he give the president on the Balalo issue in Teso in the northern region, because what we see is running massively a tribal war. Jack Mutebin Mukono, when NEMA pretended to fight for us on matters of rubbish control, disposal, especially by motorists, the thing died on arrival. While Rwanda is excelling in this area as the cleanest city in Africa, Uganda is a big joke. Thank you, my favorite professor and Captain Babu, for nailing it properly. Finally, Eva Tash from Bonamwaya. My highlight for 2023 was the submission by Honorable Chagulanyi during the BBC interview on homosexuality. It was one of the best answers he has ever given. How many leaders in full view of the camera can answer logically the way he did? He maintained being neutral, and that was the best way possible. Finally, Deo Kato in Mbara. Ugandans are squeezed between the hands of the corrupt officials, especially the ruling party, because they know what should be done, but they rather quit and contrary to their responsibilities, because it is a ticket for survival, not the heart of the country at stake. Professor Sarah, thank you very much. Alex, thank you very much. Sarah, thank you very much for coming. I hope the two of you will lead to another invite and be able to come back. Will be not invitation to Professor, but by yourself. Councillor Edgar, it's always a pleasure. Captain Francis Babu, it's always a pleasure. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. I want to also thank the production team behind that has made this possible. And we'll end it this way with this quote. And we'll say, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can in 2024. God bless you. Good morning.
(1950s) and early 1960s non-aligned movement. The countries of the non-aligned movement represent nearly 2/3 of the United Nations members and contain 55% of the world's population. Membership is particularly concentrated in countries considered to be developing countries, although the non-aligned movement also has a number of developed countries gained the most traction in 1950s and early 1960s, when the international policy of non-alignment achieved major success in decolonization disarmament.